So our Telnet, SSH, and connecting multiple networks using a router, and probably IP addressing. So I'll include here also.
You're recording?
Yes, I've started recording.
Okay.
Yes, IP addressing. Okay. So I just draw a simple topology. I mean, so this is a router. I'm just going to use one router, and the first thing that we're going to do here is just to connect multiple networks. Let's say 3 or 2. So multiple networks is based on addresses. So you use IP address to know the differences between the networks. So let's say this is that's our first LAN, the second LAN, and the third LAN on this side. So we connect them all to the router. And maybe we include the test devices, for example 2 computers in each case. And do the connection. And I do the connection very fast. Okay, so I'm just going to do this for a while. Okay, so this should be our network 1. Let's say the network here is 192.168.1.0/24. Copy that. The network here is 192.2.0, 192.168.2.0. Then here finally is 3.0. 3.0. So these are different networks, and when you don't have a router, different networks cannot communicate. So that's why we need a router or a layer 3 device. A layer 3 device can be a router, a firewall, or a layer 3 switch. So in this case, we've started with a router. So we started with a router to connect multiple networks. So what we're going to learn here today is to assign IP address to the router's interface, and you give a description to each interface. For example, I can say that this is this LAN is called let's say this is IT LAN. This is HR LAN. And this finance LAN. Sorry, I need to do capital letters, uppercase. Finance LAN. Okay, so we want a scenario where any interface connecting to each LAN has a description. For example, when you go to the router, you'll find that this interface here, which is gig 00, you find a description or a comment that this interface connects to IT LAN, and that interface has an IP address in this network, such that this LAN here will use this interface as its default gateway. So there's a lot of terms that we need to discuss. For example, default gateway. We need to understand what we mean by subnet mask. We need to understand what we mean by network address and host address. So basically, what I mean by default gateway is just an address that a particular LAN will use to route traffic in and out of the network. So for example, this LAN here will use IP address of this interface, router's interface, to communicate outside and to receive packets. Likewise, this LAN here will use IP address of this interface to communicate outside and to receive packets, also for this one. So the IP address of these interfaces are the default gateway of the respective LANs. So for example, the IP address of this interface is the default gateway of this LAN. Same applies to this one for this LAN and this one for this LAN. So a concept of default gateways is very, very important. And now this is the IP, the base network. We begin a base network of this one and a subnet mask of /24. So /24 notation this basically stands for 255.255.255.0. So we need to identify that this is a class C address. Are you familiar with the classes of IP addresses? For example, you have class A, B, and C.
I read them, but I don't have, like, they can't come one way. I can't remember them. Just
okay, so that's why I'm saying that in the next class we are going to do what's called IP addressing and subnetting. So that's why we're going to have a full understanding of all the addresses and how to subnet a particular address and assign them to the different subnetworks. Okay. So this is just a quick demo of how to connect multiple networks using a router, because by default, when you don't have a router here, a device in this network cannot communicate with a device in this network because they belong to in a different networks, and there's no device that connects them. So a kind of an intermediary device that connects different devices is a router, a layer 3 switch, or a firewall. So this is just an intermediary device that will connect multiple networks. So a router is very, very important in any enterprise network, because you will have different networks and you will need these networks to communicate, and that's why you need a router. Okay, so so what I'll do first, I'll just open this IP addressing. So IP addressing, for example, I've said that this LAN here should be in this network, and for it to be in this network and it's connected to this router, meaning this interface, the IP address of this interface should also be in this network. So let's assume IP address of this interface takes the first available IP address. This is just a network address. .0 is just a network address. So IP address stands for .1, 1.1. Okay. So I'll go to this router. First thing that we do, we check the interface. This gig 00. So we go and we say no. Enable connectivity. Then we enter interface gig 0/0. The first thing that you do before you assign IP address, as you can see now, it's still red because it's by default routers interfaces are in shutdown state. So it's upon the administrators to turn them on. They are not like switches. Switches, when you connect them, you access the network. So the router interface, they are in shutdown state. It's upon the network administrator to manually turn them on. So it's upon us to turn it on. How do we turn an interface on? We just issue a command that's called no shutdown, no shut. Just that, and you hit enter.
That's all?
Yes, how to turn the interface up. As you can see now, it's turning up, and now we can see that we selected a correct interface through which we're going to assign an IP address. So we say that this interface should take the first available IP address, which will be 192.168.1.1. So we're going to that interface still, and we assign it IP address. How do we assign the IP address? How do you assign an IP address? You just issue a command IP address or IP address. Then we see that it's going to take the first available IP address, which is 192.168.1.1. And don't forget subnet mask, space, then subnet mask. Subnet mask you check here, it's /24 notation. 255.255.255.0 /24 notation. We're going to learn how to calculate a decimal subnet mask from a slash notation in the next class, when we'll be introducing IP addressing, and you hit enter. So we have already assigned IP address to that interface. So what's just remaining is just to give it a description. For example, you see that this interface connects to IT LAN, so you should give it a description. In every case, remember to give an interface a description. For example, just write description. Description is a command. Now you write your comment. This interface connects to IT LAN. Yeah. It connects to IT LAN. This interface is connected to this LAN here. Yeah. So you just hit enter and you exit. Now you go to the second interface. You check which interface is this one. You see that it's so I was saying that now we go to the second interface, which is this one, and it's a gig 01. So we just enter interface gig 0/1, and the first thing that you do, you turn it on. As you can see, it's still red, so you turn it on. You just say a no shutdown. That's command. No shutdown no shut in short. So you hit enter. Okay, so you see it's turning up. Now the second thing, you send it IP address. You check which IP address is on the HR LAN side. It's 2.0 I mean. So you just issue command IP address 192.168.2.1, the first available IP address. This is a network. Now the first available IP address will be 2.1, and the subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, and you hit enter. The next thing, don't forget, give it a description. It connects to HR LAN. So the keyword is just description. Now you write your comment. This interface connects to HR LAN, and you hit enter. You exit. We finally do for this side. Which interface is this one? It's gig 02. So you go to that and you enter interface gig 0/2. This first thing, you turn it up. It's off, so you turn it up. You should just a command that's called no shutdown, no shut, and that's all. The second thing, don't forget to send IP address. Now the IP address will be the first available host, which is 3.1. So just issue a command IP address 192.168.3.3.1. subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Then a description. It connects to finance LAN. Description. This interface connects to LAN. Exit and do right. So we've done doing IP addressing and writing description for each interface. So for example, if you go to this router and just say do show start and you scroll, you will see we have them here. First interface was gig 00. It was connecting to IT LAN. You know, for management you should write comments. Yeah, it's a good practice to write comments for a good management, you know, practice in any networking design. So that was the description. This interface connects to IT LAN. We have IP address. The same applies to gig 01, which was connecting to HR with this IP address, and gig 02, which was connecting to finance with this IP address. So our main aim was to connect multiple networks and enable those networks to communicate. So we have already assigned different networks to the router's interface. So let's assign these host devices also IP address. For example, these two host devices, they will have this IP address. These two host devices, they will have this these two host IP addresses, they have this IP address. These two host devices, they will have these IP addresses. So let's do that very, very fast to save time. So I go to this computer. You come to desktop, IP addressing, then you type IP 192.168.1.2. You can remember the interface of this router took 1.1, so that has already been taken. So we assign the only one that is left. So 1.2 is left, and we copy that now. Subnet mask was 255.255.0. That's correct. Now here we introduce a concept that is called default gateway. Routing, we introduce a concept that is called default gateway. Remember, in switches we were just configuring here this one and this one, and that was done. Now we're getting here default gateway. What's the default gateway of this LAN? The default gateway of this LAN is IP address of the connecting router's interface. IP address of this one, which is gig 00. So the gig 00 IP address was 1.1. So you assign it as the default gateway here. Yes, so that's all. And you try to ping the default gateway if it's reachable. So you just go to command and you try to ping a default gateway. Okay, the default gateway is reachable. We can reach default gateway from this PC, and the default gateway of this PC is the IP address of this router interface. Let's go to this PC too. So also this PC, it will take .3 because .1 and .2 has been taken, and that's the IP address. Subnet mask and default gateway, as we said, is the IP address of this router's interface, the connecting interface. So that's done. Let's test if the default gateway is reachable. Just issue a command ping, and that's all. Okay, it's reachable. Let's try to ping the other PC, PC which was .2. Okay, it's reachable too. Okay, so we got this LAN here also to assign IP address to these computers, and they will take 2. something, and 2.1 was taken with by this interface. So this one should take 2.2, 2.3. So I go very, very fast. 2.2.2, copy. Then the default gateway now, the default gateway for this LAN is IP address of this router, of this router's interface, which was 2.1. It was 2.1. The first IP address assigned was 2.1, and we test if it's reachable. Can the host reach that IP address? Okay, they can reach it. We go to this PC2 and assign IP address. So it's very quick. This will take .3, and the subnet mask will remain the same. Okay, so finally let's do for this LAN, which was 3 dot something. So I go to this PC, come to desktop, and come there and I paste and make that 3 and 2 there. Oh, sorry, 3.2, and I copy that, and here make default gateway 3.1 now. So let's test if you can reach 3.1. Let's test if it will reach 3.1. So I'll test if it will reach 3.1. It's reaching. Okay, so I finally go to this PC and do the IP address configuration. 3.3 now. Okay. Alright, so in this topology we managed to connect 3 different networks. The first network is this one, 192.168.1.0, then 192.168.2.0, 192.168.3.0, yes, with a different subnet mask. And this network is called IT LAN, this one is HR LAN, finance LAN. So by default, when we don't have a router, these networks will not communicate. But because we have a router, this computer here should be able to communicate with this computer and this computer, and I will test that. So for example, I'll go to this computer, I'll go to that computer, and come to command prompt, and I try to ping 192.168.2.2. You can see it's reaching at 2.2 from our IT LAN. And now let's try to ping 3.2 or 3.3. It's still reaching 3.3. So that's why I'm telling you the main purpose of a router is to connect multiple networks and allow those multiple networks to intercommunicate, to communicate. Yeah. So I think we have achieved that, and our next thing is configuring Telnet. We've done connecting multiple networks and IP addressing, which was the first step. Now let's go to Telnet. Although we did it yesterday, but these are very important concepts because we'll be using them in every configuration that we're going to do. So we just need to understand it better. Okay. Telnet. How do we configure Telnet? It's very simple. It's very simple. As you can remember, a while ago we were just configuring LAN VTY. So configuring LAN VTY, password and just password is enough to configure a Telnet. For example, how to configure a Telnet? You enter LAN VTY 0 to 15. And you issue password, let's say Cisco. Then you just log in and you are done configuring Telnet. Although you can issue other commands like exec timeout of even 5 minutes, then login synchronous. something like this, and you're just done configuring Telnet. Configuring Telnet is very easy. It's just configuring a LAN VTY. So the challenge that is a little bit challenging or rather complicated is configuring SSH, and that's why I brought them together so that we can start with Telnet and we move to SSH. Okay, so let's go ahead to configure Telnet before we can configure SSH. I want us to configure Telnet and verify. I said how to configure Telnet is the same as how just to configure password to line VTY. So just go to the router. Okay, we are going to somewhere. So we just configure Telnet. We just issue a command line VTY 0 to 15 and issue password. Let's say Cisco and login. Then we can issue exec timeout if you like, or if you don't, just leave it, and login synchronous. Exit and do right. So basically we've configured Telnet. This is just a command to configure Telnet. I said yesterday that we have two ways of managing devices. One is doing a physical configuration. When we are there, we just plug in a console cable to the switch and to our PC, or to the router and to our PC, and we configure a router when we are physically at the data center or the server room. Another thing, we use remote access, and for remote access we use protocols, for example Telnet and SSH. So the difference between Telnet and SSH is that Telnet is not secure, it doesn't support encryption, and SSH is secure and supports encryption. And mostly people use SSH because using Telnet, someone can read your data when you're sending them, but SSH, everything is encrypted. So we've configured a Telnet here. So let's go and verify Telnet. You can go to any computer, even this one. So just go here and come to CMD command prompt and just write a command Telnet, then IP address of the router. Remember that this router has 3 IP addresses. When I hover over it, you can see gig 00 has IP address, gig 01 has IP address, gig 02 has IP address. So you can use any IP address that you like. So for example, I will use 192.168.3.11.2.1 and I hit enter. You can see user verification. So we need to put password, and remember we've just configured a password here with the name Cisco. So this is what we input. Remember we were on our desk far away from the data center, and now we are going to configure a router that is in data center. So you can see we have obtained a router's interface from our computer far away from the data center. So that's how to configure Telnet. You can even verify on this side also. Just a minute. You can verify on the other side also. You can even verify on the other side also. This one, PC3. So I come to PC3 and command prompt. I just say Telnet. Then any IP address of the router. Remember the router has 3 IP addresses. So let's say even 192.168.3.1 and I hit enter. So you see it's asking for verification, password of Cisco, and you are in the router's interface. So we can just do configuration here. Okay. So whenever I try to write enable, you can see something, no password set. And remember when you're using a Telnet or SSH, remember to set up enable password, which is very, very important. So I'll go back to this router and set enable password. So I'll go to this router and say enable password to be Cisco 2. Okay. So so when I come back to this PC and write enable, I should not get this one. So I'll write enable, and you see it's asking me for enable password, which was Cisco. And now I can configure the router from this point. So that's how to do Telnet. So finally, let's do SSH. SSH is said is a secure and the most secure version of Telnet. Not a version, but an alternative. Yeah. So how do we configure SSH? Configuring SSH is a little bit wanting, because it's a lot of commands that we need to do. The first thing to do when you are configuring SSH, I'll put this on this side. The first thing to do is to ensure that the computer, or I mean the device, has a hostname. Remember, these devices, they have default hostnames. For example, this is a router. That's a default hostname. It has not been configured. So it's upon us to ensure that the device has a hostname. The second thing, we should ensure that the device has a domain name, IP domain name. It has IP domain name. Main. Okay, after ensuring that the device has IP domain name, we should then also ensure that the device has a. So we should also ensure that the device has a username and password. After ensuring the three are in place, then we go ahead to create to generate crypto keys using RSA as the encryption technique, encryption algorithm. We say that in SSH data are encrypted, meaning we have to use an encryption algorithm. So the encryption algorithm that we're going to use here is called RSA, which is something like Riva Shamir. It's a name of someone. Yeah. After generating crypto keys, so after generating crypto keys, now we go back to line VTY. Line VTY 0 to 15 to apply SSH. So let's do this very, very fast. After we've applied SSH, we need to test them. So we test with either of these PCs. Okay, so I'll go to this computer here, to this router, and I'll put this one. I'll put it here. The first thing, ensure the device has hostname, not the default hostname. This is a default hostname. Configure hostname. Just issue command hostname. Let's say R1. Okay. IP domain name. How do we configure IP domain name? We just say IP domain name, and let's say Cisco.com. For example, if you are working in any organization, for example, Google, you can just say google.com. But this is just a test. We're using Cisco.com as our IP domain name. Ensure that the device has IP domain name. You hit enter. Then create a username and password. Create a username and password. How do you create username and password? You just say username Cisco. Anything you like, but on my case, I like using Cisco. Just like that. And password also Cisco. So the keyword here, the commands here are password and the username. So between them, you can you can write anything that you like. So my username is Cisco, my password is Cisco. I hit enter. Then we need to generate crypto keys using RSA encryption algorithm. So how do we create crypto keys? We just say crypto key generate RSA. Crypto key generate RSA. Very simple command. Just that one. Crypto key generate using which algorithm? Encryption algorithm. RSA. And you hit enter. And you know, whenever you hit enter, it's asking you to input a modulus length. Modulus length is just like a key length, the length of the key. You know, the longer the length, the harder it becomes to break. So the recommended one is 512, but in most cases in SSH, we normally use 1024. We double this one, the recommended one. We double it so that it becomes longer for attackers to crack it. So we just hit enter. You just hit enter. After hitting enter now, we enter line VTY 0 to 15, like we said, line VTY 0 to 15. So we are in line VTY. After doing this now, I will want to include other commands here. Now you issue command to login using local database. After login using local database, now you do what? You enable only SSH while disable Telnet, because Telnet is not secure. So we want to enable only SSH and while disable Telnet, because Telnet is not secure. So I click on the same router. Remember, we are in line VTY 015. We issue a command that's called login local. Login local is the local database. A local database basically means we have a username and password. So this is what will be used to log in to this router. Login local database. In the database, we have a username with the name Cisco and a password is Cisco also. So we issue that, and then we enable only SSH while disabling Telnet. How do we do that? We issue a command that is called transport input SSH. So before I enter this command, I want to test Telnet. I want to test Telnet. I go to this computer and write Telnet 192.168.1.1 Cisco. You can see we can log into the device with Telnet. So I want to issue this command that is called transport input SSH. I hit enter and do right. So I'll go back to the same computer. I'll just issue end. Sorry. I'll just issue exit. So we're back to the computers. We are from the router, then we are back to computer. So I'll just try to do Telnet again. Remember the time I did Telnet, it was opening. So I have disabled it on the router because it's not secure, and now I'm doing it through SSH. So Telnet, this one. Let's try to do this one again. Telnet, that one, hit enter. You can see connection to this one closed by foreign host. It won't happen because we just disabled it. Using which command? Transport input SSH. So we're just allowing SSH to be used through the VTY interface. No Telnet should be used. So that's how to configure Telnet and SSH. So how do we verify Telnet and SSH? We saw that how to verify Telnet. You just go to CMD, then you write Telnet, then space IP address, and you hit enter. But how to verify SSH is becoming a little bit complicated, you know. You just go to CMD still. You just go to CMD, then you write this command. So you go to CMD and write this command SSH, then space -L, that's L, then you write the username. Our username was Cisco, and IP address of the router. You know the router has 3 IP addresses, so any IP address .1.1, any IP address. So these are the command to verify SSH. So I'll just try to copy that, come to any PC, for example this one, and command prompt and paste that one. So SSH -L, a username. Don't forget username, because we used a login local command to use the local database. So in the database we have a username by the name Cisco and IP address of the router. The router had 3 IP addresses. You can use any that you like, and hit enter. So you can see it's asking me for password. So the password is Cisco, and enable password was also Cisco, and now we are in the router's interface from PC5. So just imagine the router was in data center, and this is has in the desk. So we managed to log into the router remotely using SSH. So it's very important. It's very important on how to know how to configure both Telnet and SSH. But Telnet is obsolete, and it's an outdated version of remote login. We're currently using SSH. So in most of configuration, we'll be using SSH. So just know how to configure SSH. And also I didn't include something here because I configured it earlier. Don't forget to configure enable password. Although I did it before this, don't forget to configure enable password. So these are just steps to configure SSH: hostname and enable password, IP domain name, username and password, generate a crypto keys, line VTY, and apply SSH. How do I apply SSH? Login local and enable only SSH while disabling Telnet. So this one is just called the command here was called transport input SSH. So that one will enable only SSH while disabling Telnet. Also, how do you apply? Now to apply SSH to VTY. Okay, so to apply SSH to VTY, the first thing, you enter the line VTY, then login local and transport input SSH. How do we verify? Go to any of the PC and write this command: SSH space -L, then the username that we gave out here, and IP address. The router had 3 IP addresses, so you can use any that you like. So with that, you shall have achieved the 3. And I think these are very short video, and it's a very simple to understand that you do within a very short time of watching this video. Okay, so I think that marks the end of this class today. So in the next class, I want us to introduce a very important concept in routing or in networking in general, the concept of IP addressing, because everything everywhere will be using IP addresses. So that's why we need to know